Hi, it's Colin, GM4JPZ, and this is a short video on the Cushcraft MA6B 2-element compact beam for 6 to 20 meters. I've had a few problems when I was constructing this, and thought I would make a video to help people and maybe save some people a few problems. First thing I would suggest is that before you start building the MA6B, have a look at the MA5B manual, because it's much better written. As you can see, you get full information with a full diagram on how to fix the mast to the boom. If you've done this kind of thing before, it should be no problem to you, but in my case, it was the first time I'd done it myself, and I was very grateful for these tips. This is also how to fix the elements to the boom, etc. And I personally found it very useful. For example, here with the element mounting, you see how the parts fit together. And if you have experience, I'm sure this is obvious to you. It wasn't obvious to me, and I was very grateful for this extra information. You will also see when it gets down to the X hat assembly that they also tell you how to affix the X hats to the elements as well, which, as I say, I personally found very useful. To go back to the MA6B manual, you'll find it looks very good there. That's how the antenna is going to look when it's all put together. And you start off with a parts list, which is more or less correct. Just an aside here, we in Britain know worm clamps as hose clamps, and that is just that's the American expression for them, is worm clamps. Maybe people use that in Britain as well. I wasn't familiar with that. And it's a good idea to go through all the parts and find out, make sure everything is there before you start working on it. What I did was, with the tubes, was I measured them and put a tape on them with the name of the element or the tube, so that when I was putting them together, I could just go over and pick up the correct one from the instructions. As you'll see here, for example, it says the boom assembly, and it tells you 1.5 inch outward diameter times 48 inches, but that you don't want to have to measure it every time. So I ended up writing down which particular tube it was for which particular length. I found that useful to me. So there we go. And here, for example, for the driven element assembly, they do tell you that you put EB into EA, etc., EB into EA on the right side, etc., and then you have the traps there. Anyway, this is so you can follow all this for your construction if you want. Here's something I wrote that I was going to send to MFJ Cushcraft concerning how they have the lengths wrong. I'll just leave it up here. You can obviously stop the video and copy it if you want. But just to give you an idea, the 2015-10 driven element uses the parts EA and EB, which are 34 and 36 inches long respectively. So if you add up 2 times 34 inches plus 2 times 36 inches, you get 140 inches. The instructions say to insert EB 4 inches into EA in step 2. However, the distance between the MT1 traps is given as 137 inches. This means both EB tubes have in fact to be inserted 1.5 inches into the EA tube. In addition, in order for the length including the MT1 traps to be correct, there has to be 1/2 inch space added on the outer side of the traps, although later on in the manual, the length is to be varied from 0 to 2 inches depending on where you want minimum SWR on 20 meters. That's 7 to 9 inches in reality. So there you go. And the same goes for all of the other measurements. Another thing I noticed was the instructions for the MN6B junction box say the SO239 should face towards the center of the antenna. If you clamp the junction box with worm clamps to the boom, as you have to do, the SO239 is facing forward, so it can only point down in the finished assembly when the antenna is raised. It cannot point towards the center of the antenna. The old junction box, which was provided with the MA5B antenna, had the SO239 pointing out the side, and it did in fact point towards the center of the antenna. They have forgotten to change this. And here's another one piece of information. If you're not sure about worm clamp sizes, the size is given on them in millimeters. Here's the conversion. So there you go. That's really everything I wanted to say. I've had the antenna out for a couple of weeks now. I'm very happy with it. I'm going to have to lower it and change some of the lengths a little bit. It's a bit sensitive on 20 meters. It's really not very. It's not resonant over a wide range on 20 meters, but the rig and my amp accept it, so that seems to be okay. So there you go. Hope this has been a help to somebody. I'm Colin, GM for JPZ.